That night in the ER, nobody said a word, but those silent stares were about to change his life forever. The fluorescent lights in the emergency room burned his eyes. The waiting area smelled like antiseptic. The clock on the wall ticked too loud, and he sat frozen in that hard plastic chair. But there was still something he didn't know yet. His name was Amir, 27, a software engineer, a young Muslim who'd grown up in Europe, living just outside Brussels. That late evening, after a sudden sharp pain in his chest and shortness of breath, he'd found himself at the hospital's emergency entrance. But then, the door opened. The intake nurse pushed her glasses up and asked in a flat tone, "Name?" "Amir al-Hassan." "Date of birth? Chief complaint?" He answered the questions, got a white wristband clipped around his arm, and was sent to the yellow plastic chairs in the waiting area. He stared at the screen, waiting for his number to pop up, his heartbeat racing. When his phone rang, his life would change. His phone buzzed. On the screen, his best friend, Jonas. "How you holding up, man?" Jonas asked, voice tight with worry. "My chest hurts, but hey, I'm in the ER. They'll see me soon," Amir said. "I mean, how long can it really take?" he added, hearing the uncertainty in his own voice, the fear in his eyes. He looked up at the digital board. A little beep and a new number flashed. Number Trent Cat, Marie Dubois. Amir glanced at his wristband. 29. The woman who just walked in after him was going in before him, but there was still something he didn't know yet. Maybe her case is more serious, he told himself. They've got triage priorities and all that. He tried to calm down, but his breathing kept getting tighter, and then the door opened. A nurse rushed toward an elderly man who'd just come in. He walked slowly with a cane, his wife hovering beside him, face full of panic. Before he even checked in, they were wheeling him back. Amir said nothing. Okay, he thought. He's older. Makes sense. The fragility in his voice was the cry of a heart trying to defend its own dignity. Then the door slid open again. This time, a young blonde guy walked in, jeans and a denim jacket, phone in his hand, half laughing at whatever he was texting. He stepped to the desk. Name? Lucas Vermeer. On times to brasses. A short exchange. A nod from the nurse toward the exam rooms. Lucas walked straight in without even sitting down to wait, but there was still something he didn't know yet. Amir's eyes shot back to the board. His number still wasn't there. Instead, another beep. 37. His throat tightened. The pain in his chest was one thing. The knot in his throat was another. He could feel the weight of being passed over again and again. The loneliness sat heavy on his shoulders. But the most shocking part was still to come. A middle-aged woman sitting nearby glanced at his wristband, then at the board, then at the guy who'd just gone in. "Weren't you here before him?" she whispered. "Yeah," Amir said quietly. "I'm 29. Her lips pressed into a thin line, like she had just noticed something she didn't want to say out loud. And then the door opened. Amir walked over to the glassed-in reception window, holding his chest, speaking as politely as he could. "Excuse me, do you know about how much longer I'll have to wait? I'm having chest pain and it's getting harder to breathe." The young clerk didn't even look up from his screen. "Everyone is being seen in order, sir," he said. "Doctors are busy. You'll have to wait." "I understand, but a few people who came in after me have already gone back. Maybe there was a mix-up. This time the clerk did look up. His eyes landed on Amir's name on the wristband. Something in his face hardened. "More critical cases get priority. That's our decision. Please take a seat." "What would you do?" Amir wanted to ask, but the words got stuck. When his phone rang, everything would shift. It was Jonas again. "Tell me you're not still out there waiting," Jonas said, now sounding pissed. "I am, but, Jonas, at least 3 people who came after me have gone in. I don't know. Maybe that's just how their system works." "Haven't we heard this before?" Jonas said, bitter sarcasm in his voice. "At job interviews, apartment hunting. On the street, now the ER. Same story, different building. Amir went quiet. Even the strongest person had once felt this helpless. Right at that moment, everything changed. The door flew open and a man in a tailored suit stumbled in, face pale, sweat on his forehead, hand pressed to his chest. Amir instinctively stood up to help, but the staff had already rushed over, dropping him into a wheelchair. Amir focused on his own breathing. His heart was pounding, but he was still on his feet, the fear in the man's eyes. As they pushed the suited man past, he locked eyes with Amir for a split second. There was something oddly familiar about his face, like Amir had seen him somewhere before, but there was still something he didn't know yet. He may have had only 10 minutes before everything fell apart. He checked the time. He'd been in the ER for over an hour. His breathing was shallower now. His hands trembled slightly. One thought kept circling in his head. Is my life worth less than theirs? It was the kind of injustice that could happen to any of us. The nurse was now talking to another couple that had just come in. The woman was pregnant, one hand on her belly, fear all over her face. Inside, Amir thought, she should go first, of course, take care of her. But when he looked up at the board, his stomach dropped. The line had skipped over him again. When his phone rang, his life would change. This time, it wasn't Jonas. "Hello, Amir? This is Clara from work," said a worried voice. "They said you left early today. Are you okay?" "Chest pain. I'm in the ER," Amir said, trying hard to sound calm. There was a short silence. Then Clara lowered her voice. "I don't know if I should say this, but do you remember what our boss Martin said about you at the company dinner last month?" A rush of memories hit Amir. The racist joke, the way Martin had laughed. Let's not make the place too exotic, right, Amir? All those little cuts to his dignity. "Yeah," Amir said, his voice dry. "This hospital's board?" Clara sighed. "He's on it. And last week, in a meeting, I heard him rant about how immigrants are clogging up the ERs. Maybe it's nothing, but..." There was real fear in her voice now. The documents with his signature would change everything. "Wait, don't miss this detail." Amir's eyes drifted to the suited man being wheeled down the hallway. He studied the guy's profile, the line of his jaw, the faint smug set of his lips. It looked just like his boss, Martin. No way, he thought. There's no chance it's him. But then he saw the tiny scar on the bridge of his nose, the same one Martin got when he slipped on the office stairs and turned it into a running joke. The voice from the phone was familiar, but... "Jonas," Amir said quickly, "I think my boss is here, in this same ER. They just rushed him in." "You're kidding me," Jonas snapped. "You're still out in the waiting room and he's already being treated?" "Maybe his condition really is worse," Amir mumbled. But there wasn't much belief in his tone. "I swear, man, you still say maybe?" Jonas said. "I need to know. What would you do? Seriously, what are you going to do now?" "You're not going to believe this, but..." On the far side of the waiting room, a commotion broke out. A young black man was standing at the desk, voice raised. "I've been here 2 hours. People who walked in after me are going in, and I'm still out here. That can't be an accident." The clerk replied with the same icy calm. "Sir, please lower your voice. Everyone is seen in order. If you're not satisfied, you're free to go to another hospital." The mix of frustration and disbelief on the young man's face looked exactly like what Amir felt inside. 2 different faces of the same problem people left on the far side of an invisible line, but there was still something he didn't know yet. Amir tried to take a deep breath, but it felt like a metal clamp was tightening around his chest. He sank back into his chair, head bowed. He started to pray under his breath. "God, give me patience, but not silence." He pictured the nights he'd collapsed into bed, fully dressed, hands over his face, whispering prayers as his pillow soaked with tears, his mother's words echoing in his mind. Staying silent in the face of injustice is standing with the oppressor. And then, the door opened. A nurse walked up to him. Amir el-Hassan? His heart jumped. Yes, that's me. Your doctor will see you soon, but first, please fill out these forms. She handed him a thick stack of papers. On the top page, right next to the hospital logo, a signature caught his eye. Martin Keller, board chairman. The voice on the phone was familiar, but everything you've seen so far is nothing. As he started filling out the forms, the ER doors banged again, and a shout rang out from inside. A nurse's voice, tense and panicked. Heart rhythms dropping. Doctor, now. Footsteps scrambled past. Metal clattered on the tile. Alarms started blaring. Only one thought crossed Amir's mind. The suited man they rushed in, the one who looked like Martin. When the door swung partly open, what they saw. For a second, Amir caught a clear view inside. A man lay on a gurney, electrodes stuck to his chest, lips turning blue, doctors working frantically over him. It was him. The man Amir had worked under for years. The man who profited off his labor but never saw him as equal. His skin was gray, his body shuddering under the shock, but there was still something Amir didn't know yet. Security guards were moving closer. The buzz in the waiting room cut off as two big security guards stepped in. Radios on their belts crackled softly. Their eyes swept the room and locked on the young black man at the desk. "We're gonna have to ask you to step outside, sir. You're disturbing the other patients." "I'm just asking for my rights," he shouted. "Sir, come with us." Rough fingers closed around his arm. Amir watched, breathing grow even more shallow. Two choices, he thought. Shut up or pay the price. And then the door opened. When he picked up the phone, his phone vibrated again. This time, it was his mom. "Amir, my son, are you okay?" she asked, speaking with an accent, her voice soft and warm across the miles. "I'm okay, Mom. Just waiting a bit," he said, trying to sand down the edges of the truth. She talked about their early days in Europe, the hopes they'd had. "We thought this place would treat everyone the same," she said, and the knife twisted in his chest. "Sometimes they act like they don't see us," Amir whispered. "Like we're always asking for too much, just by existing." "Don't forget who you are," his mother answered. "Your worth is with God, not in their lines or their eyes." Everyone knew the truth by now, but the real shock was, just when you think it's over. Amir hung up and stood again. The pain in his chest flared, but he walked toward the desk anyway. His voice shook, but it was steady enough to carry. "Look," he said, "I came in with chest pain and shortness of breath. I've been here over an hour. People who came in after me have gone in. I asked for an explanation and was told everyone's seen in order. If this is really based on medical priority, fine, but then be transparent. Right now, I feel like I've been pushed to the back because of my name and who I am." The clerk dropped his gaze. A few other patients started listening. The middle-aged woman beside him called out, "He's right. I saw it. This gentleman was here before them." The young black man, still flanked by security, lifted his voice. "See, I'm not the only one. This keeps happening." The fragility in their voices was the cry of hearts defending their right just to exist. But the most shocking part was still to come. A middle-aged woman in a white coat stepped out from the back. Her badge said, "Dr. Elena Fisher, attending on call." Her voice was calm but firm. "Is there a problem here?" she asked. Amir took a careful breath, each word pressed out against the ache in his chest. "Yes, doctor. I came in with chest pain. I've been waiting more than an hour. Multiple people who arrived after me have been taken back. When I asked, I was told I'm seen in order. If that's true, I'd like to understand it. There are see this take/tribe the city. If this is really about medical urgency, okay. But right now I feel like I'm being put last because of my name and my background. It was an injustice that really could happen to anyone." Dr. Elena paused. Her eyes flicked from Amir's wristband to the faces in the waiting room, most of them immigrants, people of color or both. Something like shame crossed her features. "Take him for an EKG right now," she told the nurse, "and bring me the intake logs for everyone we've called in the last hour." Her voice sharpened. Anger there, but it wasn't aimed at Amir. It was aimed at something much bigger, but he still didn't know how big. This might be his last real chance. As they wheeled him down to the EKG room, he caught sight of the gurney carrying Martin. A doctor shouted, "Prep for stent, pulse dropping." A thought rushed into Amir's mind, hot and ugly. Der Ausgebeld. Maybe he's getting what he deserves. Then shame burned through that anger. Who am I to weigh someone else's life like that? He thought. He knew speaking up could cost him his job if the wrong people took it personally. But staying quiet would cost him something deeper, the fear in that man's eyes. While the tech placed the electrodes on his chest, the nurse asked, "Has it been like this for a while?" "Worse over the last few hours," Amir said. "But really, it's been a long time. At work, outside, now here. I always feel like I have to prove I deserve basic things." The nurse looked away. Maybe this was the first time she really saw herself as part of the system too. And then, the door opened. What was in those documents would change everything. Dr. Elena walked back in, holding a tablet. "Your EKG is relatively stable," she said. "That's good. But I want a few more tests to be safe. Also," she exhaled slowly, "there's something else." She turned the tablet so Amir could see. "These are the intake logs. Your number's been skipped 3 times. The system doesn't do that on its own. Someone overrode it." "You mean they did this on purpose?" Amir asked, his throat closing up. "I can't say that officially," she replied. "But this isn't random. And it's not the first complaint we've had about this ER treating immigrant patients differently. The problem is," she hesitated, "someone on the board has been shutting those complaints down." The name, Amir already knew. "You still haven't seen the biggest twist." "Let me guess," Amir said, barely above a whisper. "The signature on those reports, Martin Keller?" Dr. Elena nodded slightly. "I'm not technically allowed to confirm that," she said. "But I also can't look you in the eye and lie." "And right now," Amir added, "he's out there, having a heart attack in the same ER where his system pushed me to the back." The doctor turned her head away for a moment, thinking. "Life is cruelly ironic sometimes," she said. "He may have treated people like you as if your lives were less urgent, but right now your heart is in better shape than his. That's also the truth. What would you do?" Again, everything you've seen so far is nothing. An hour later, Amir lay in an observation room, hooked up to a monitor. On the wall, a muted TV played a documentary with subtitles, "Racism in Emergency Care: How Bias Can Turn Waiting Rooms into Death Traps." But there was still something he couldn't see yet. The door opened a crack, and Jonas slipped in, with someone behind him the same young black man security had tried to pull out earlier. "How did you guys even get back here?" Amir asked, surprised. "A nurse helped," Jonas said, nodding back toward the door. "Her name's Lena." She said, "He shouldn't have to feel alone standing up to this." The other man stepped closer and held out his hand. "I'm David," he said. "When I was arguing up front, I saw you too. It helped, knowing I wasn't crazy, or alone." No one knew yet, but Amir was about to be part of someone else's quiet rescue story. Just when they thought it was over, Dr. Elena stepped into the room again, this time carrying a stack of printed pages. Her face looked more resolved than before. "There's something I want you all to see," she said. She spread the papers on the small table. Amir, David, and Jonas leaned in. Complaint forms, internal reports, charts of wait times, differences by ethnicity and nationality, and at the bottom of so many of them, the same signature. "These should have been in a prosecutor's hands," Elena said. "Instead, they've been sitting in drawers, because powerful people here would rather protect their image than fix what's killing people." "So why show us this now?" Jonas asked. "Because today," she said, "2 things happened. A Muslim immigrant spoke up for his rights calmly but firmly, and I realized I can't unsee the look in his eyes. That look that says, "I know what's happening to me, and I won't pretend I don't." Amir thought. Even the strongest person was once this helpless. Security was closing in. Heavy footsteps again in the hallway. They stopped just outside the room. A security guard's voice came through the door. "Dr. Fisher, administration wants to see you, right now. They heard you've been reviewing restricted files." Elena took a deep breath. This is it, she thought. My last chance. She looked straight at Amir. "I might lose my job for this," she said, "but I'm not going to pretend I didn't see what I saw tonight." The voice on the phone was familiar, but Amir's phone rang again. Unknown number. "Hello, Clock M. Mr. El Hassan, this is Pierre Laurent from the Brussels Patient Rights Council," a deep voice said. "A friend of yours contacted us and asked me to reach out about what's going on in that ER right now." Amir glanced at Jonas, who just shrugged with a guilty grin. "I'm listening," Amir said. "I'm listening. I'm listening," Amir said. "I'm listening." Amir said. "I'm listening." Amir said. "I'm listening." Amir said. "I'm listening. I'm listening." Amir said. "What you're experiencing," Pierre said, "is not just a personal injustice. It's part of a structural problem. If you choose, we can turn this into a formal complaint and possibly a public case. It will be long and exhausting. You may face pressure at work, maybe worse. But if you want to move forward, we'll stand with you. Do you?" His options had narrowed to two: stay silent or pay the price. What would you do, he asked himself. When the door opened this time, what they saw. The door eased open. Rolling past in the hallway, a gurney, Martin, oxygen mask over his face, IV in his arm, his eyes half open but aware. A doctor and nurses hustled beside him. The nurse at the foot of the bed accidentally stopped right in line with Amir's room. For a long second, Amir and Martin just stared at each other. Amir saw surprise, shame, raw fear. Maybe for the first time Martin understood what it felt like to be at the mercy of a system, only now he was the one hoping it treated him as a full human being, not an inconvenience. Maybe for the first time, he realized he needed fairness from the very structure he'd helped make unfair, the fear in his eyes. Everyone knew the facts now, but the real shock. Amir inhaled slowly. The pain in his chest had faded to a dull ache. He turned back to the phone. "Yes," he told Pierre. "I want to move forward, not just for me, for David, for everyone who sat in that room and swallowed their anger, and, honestly, for people like Martin too. Because one day they might need a fair system more than anyone. Maybe brothers one side of the ready." A small smile touched Dr. Elena's face. Jonas's eyes shone. David nodded firmly. This might be my last chance, Amir thought. This time, I can't choose silence. Just when they thought it was over. Months later, in a small hall in Brussels, cameras and microphones were pointed at a simple podium. Amir stood behind it, a folder in his hand. Behind him, Pierre, Doctor, Elena, David, and Jonas. "This isn't just a story about one hospital," he said into the mic. "It's about how a look, a skipped number on a screen, a signature on a form can quietly tell someone, your life matters less. It's the kind of injustice that could happen to any of us." And that night in the ER, when no one stepped in, I asked myself, what would you do if this was you? The room went silent. The cameras kept rolling, but there was still something he didn't know. The documents they released that day made headlines. An official investigation into the hospital's ER began. Martin was removed from the board. Dr. Elena was suspended for a while, but the public rallied behind her. And Amir, in a strange way, had finally freed that heavy, buried sense of justice inside himself. The voice on the phone was familiar, but one evening at home, sitting in front of his laptop, Amir's phone rang again, another unknown number. "Hello?" "It's Martin," came a weak, tired voice. "You probably don't want to talk to me. I'd understand if you hung up, but I needed to call." Amir said nothing at first. He saw again the image of Martin on the gurney, helpless. "I know I didn't treat you fairly," Martin said. "For years. What happened at the hospital? After that, I realized I can't keep pretending everything's fine. I'm not asking you to drop the case. Actually, I think we need it, to force change. I just wanted you to know that." Everyone already knew the truth, but the real shock was what Amir felt rising inside. Not revenge, not joy. A hard, painful kind of mercy with a backbone. Wait, don't miss this part. The reason he'd stayed so calm that night wasn't just fear. It went back years, to his mother's small kitchen, steam curling up from a glass of tea. She'd once told him, "Justice sometimes comes from shouting, son, but the hardest kind is when your heart is breaking and you still try to stay fair." Under the cold fluorescent lights of the ER, that was exactly what he'd been trying to do. Outside the courthouse, after one of the hearings, Jonas clapped a hand on his shoulder. "You realize," he said, "that night in the ER was the start of all this, right? Now you're not just telling your story. You're speaking for a lot of people who never get heard." Amir looked up at the sky. Through the gray European clouds, a thin beam of light broke through. The weight of loneliness used to sit on his shoulders, he thought, but now he wasn't walking alone. And maybe the most important part, that night in the ER, it had looked like nobody helped him, but some of those silent eyes eventually chose to speak up. "Everything you've seen so far is nothing," he told himself quietly. "The real change starts now."